go ahead. You can just get started on what you felt about the experience.
Okay, Chief. Initially when we walked in, they gave us like the walkthrough, like what we were gonna be experiencing, and then they had us go into this one room, the first room. My first feedback was instantly it was the smell, and they were like disguising it with like the fog machine smell. You know, like when you have like parties or concerts, they have like the fog machine. I know that smell, but this smell, the best way I could describe it is like death breath. Like I felt like I was walking, like I felt the like breath, but there was no one like around me, and it smelled that way too.
Wow. Okay. Well, it sounds like, well, when I don't know if we're going to talk about pretty much when we did our drive-by, what we ran into.
Well, yeah, we went by the Zak Bagans Museum, and one thing is, even from the outside, it had a musty smell, like an old musty smell, like when you go to some attic who hasn't cleaned it in forever, that kind of smell.
Yeah.
And it was just different smells in different rooms, but we can go. I can describe it once we get to the certain rooms.
Okay, cool. So
yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't want to cut.
Yeah, go ahead, Eric.
That's what I was gonna say too. A lot of the rooms they had stronger scents, and I wasn't sure if it was just the rooms itself or if it was like an energetic thing, because I felt like had to be something that was just not just the rooms, like something on the other side. But I didn't want to assume that was the case. But her bringing that up makes me remember that as well.
Yeah, I know when I kind of slipped up and almost started you guys doing the interview back in Nevada, and you said that one of the first things you said was like, it was creepy.
Oh yeah, eerie. Yeah, that's what I said. That was as soon as I saw the entrance, because they had a bunch of I don't know exactly what to call the items, but a lot of the paranormal stuff, a lot of the pictures of celebrities, just little items from the museum on the outside and pictures of them and articles. And I already got a sense of eeriness just from maybe all the history or maybe things inside. And as I went through, I would notice, for me, it was like sense and like pressure, like different pressures in different rooms. So yeah, that's all I had to say on that.
Yeah. Well, it actually, in a sense, I did want Ms. Orville to be on because she had started telling me a little bit of something about it when we were still in Nevada. And she said that she initially went in to try to see if she can debunk his museum. And her last sentence was that, well, there's definitely something there.
Yeah.
So, any of you have anything that she might have mentioned or whatever, you can talk about that too, since she's not here to actually, to contribute right now. So
I'm going to talk about some of the exhibits, not all of them. Mainly the ones where I felt like something unusual was happening. I wasn't sure if I wanted to go to the museum because I figured that maybe it was going to be a lot of fake stuff. On the way to the museum, after Nellie and Eric picked me up, I noticed that the museum felt like it was very active, like it was expecting us. Myself, Nellie, Eric, and Nara. Kinda spooky when I thought about it. It also felt like Chief had already made contact with the museum ahead of time, so at that point I wasn't sure what to expect. We arrived at the museum, we all had to sign waivers, probably we're not liable if you get possessed kind of thing. Of the houses outside that make up the main part of the museum, there were just a few random entities walking around looking at us. After we went inside the museum, I felt like we were all surrounded by some kind of protection. Besides, Chief wouldn't send us somewhere without surrounding us with some protection. Nara, Eric, and Nellie did continuous containment on themselves throughout the tour as well.
cool. As far as I guess since we're going to do maybe kind of like a round. How about you, Nara?
It definitely felt so. Hello. It definitely felt so big. Yeah, because the way the rooms were, it's like you feel kind of trapped, and then when you turn around, they're like creepy items, like all.
But Nelly, you said that they actually had a smoke machine.
Yes, they had the smoke machines in different rooms, and later on in the tour, I even mentioned it. I was like, oof, it got stronger and like different smells. And the guy was like, oh yeah, that's the whatever they call the machine. And then I looked over at everybody and I was like, I know that's not that smell. Because even one room, we'll get to that, but one room, it was, I think, Al Capone's room. And he had like, they had like some of his original items, like his rug, his dresser. That room had like a very cinnamony smell to it, with the smoke machine coming in from the outside. But it was very like strong cinnamon smell in there.
Yeah, yeah. Now, as far as like, you guys have been with me for a while, and I know that you all do a bit of empathing. So yeah, I know what Eric said. You know, it felt kind of what you said, not you said creepy, or what was the term you used?
Yeah, eerie, but
Eerie.
same thing. I felt like maybe in certain rooms it felt like maybe because we're your students, especially, that they were watching, or things were like looking or trying to feed in some kind of way, and then I would just contain. And there was one thing that came up that I wanted to bring up, which I was glad that you gave us permission to bring up, something that Mr. Oracle L may have said, which was something that she referenced in one of the rooms, which I'm not sure exactly which room it was, but I was containing each of the rooms we went into. And one of them, she said there was like a little boy that was in one of the rooms next to me looking at me. And what she said was, it was looking as if it was like, oh, I like him. And she said after I contained him, he ended up going away, which I would assume in that case he was dense. But that was just one thing I wanted to bring up, that she had said.
In the first room that we went into, the main thing that stood out to me was an old vintage dollhouse. Old dollhouses are always creepy to me. Upon closer inspection, I noticed a miniature young boy with short blonde hair walking around on the second floor of the dollhouse. Eventually, he just sat on a couch and stayed there. I mentioned that to Eric, Nara, and Nellie. And when we moved to another room with the tour guide, while we were listening to the tour guide describing things there, I noticed that the little boy from the dollhouse was now regular human size and was holding Eric's left hand and just standing there with Eric listening to the tour guide. The little boy was gone by the time we got to the next room.
We're talking about doing a little muscle testing just for verification. You know, and she's pretty spot on with you know, with her sensitivity, and get that was a little boy, in the room, and that it was dense. And when you contain, I should say that he was removed to, I'll use the term processing. Yeah, and, well, one of the things when we were there, we found that he had done some kind of ritual or something, this Bagans guy, and that that he had trapped a number of you know, entities and ghosts and things in that museum. So you're really more or less looking at prisoners. So I would say that they would perceive themselves as prisoners. Wow, that went down really hard. Yeah.
Sucks. It's really rough. It's like when people go to zoos, they are prisons.
Yeah.
There's lots of different types of prisons here.
Yeah, it was literally similar to that. Like, you know, you go to the zoo and you have, you know, you're looking at all the animals in captivity. I'm going to go ahead and follow your, in other words, your list, Nellie, and then we can, you know, and then we can just hit, you know, each room according to what you have on your list.
And also, little boy, he said, "I like you," because he hoped you would open up to him so he could try to get some essence.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because everything in there, you know, because of what's going on generally globally, on that side, literally starving. You know, they're not really getting any essence, and literally they feel like slaves because they don't, you know, they don't get anything from all these people walking through. Yeah. We can go to the next one, Nellie.
Okay, Chief. The second room was the room of where the Exorcist room, and they had like it was almost like a China chest thing that was originally from that, and they had like the audio playing of like when they were doing the exorcism. So when you walk in, it was dark and like kind of dimly lit, and then on each side, it was like you walk into a chapel kind of, and then like there's an aisle in the middle, and then like seats on the sides, and it was like I want to say like 2 to 3 seats on each side, and Eric and I was drawn to the front row, and then Miss Oracle L and Nara sat behind us, and Eric sat next to me, and Eric and I went to sit down at the same time. And when I sat down, Eric landed on the chair, but I felt like I landed on somebody's lap. And I jumped back up and I contained, and then I was able to sit back down. And then Miss Oracle L said that she saw something standing behind Eric and I.
Another room that we went into was sort of a portion of a church. It was dark inside. There was church seating, so we had a seat while listening to one of Zak Bagans' videos describing the artifacts in that room and the story behind that particular exhibit. There was a vacant row of seating behind Eric and Nellie. Myself and Nara was sitting in the row behind that one. At one point, I noticed a woman in spirit form come into the room and sit behind Nellie. Interesting thing is that when I mentioned that to Nellie after we left that room, she said that it actually did feel like someone was sitting behind her.
Oh, okay. Which, again, like she said, she was going to try to debunk, but then she said, yeah, there's stuff in there.
Yeah, she kept saying everything was real.
Yeah, that's good.
I want to tell you my secret now. Okay. I see
Stick figures.
In your dreams? While you're awake?
When Chief and I went to go to visit, and it happened to be closed that day, Chief checked it out, and what I noticed was that the stick figures were like, sometimes there were definitely stick figures, but there weren't as many as I felt lived inside of those houses there. So I was like, okay, maybe if I go across the street, I can see them more, because it's like, you got a tiny screen, and then I'm like, maybe I can back up and get everything. And when I backed up, everything disappeared. And I was like, that's right. And so then I came closer, and I'm like, Chief, why is it doing that? And he's like, there's a barrier. And that barrier was there to keep them in as prisoners. And I thought, oh, interesting. These consciousness, these entities are in there, and some of them were afraid to come out. And so it was interesting that they were already aware of the mission that Chief had you guys on, but there were those who were for the deal and not for the deal at the same time.
But the barrier reminded me of when Nellie and Eric were at the Hollywood Bowl. And you were SLSing then, and there was a point where you would get a stick figure, and then when you move over, all of a sudden the stick figure would disappear.
Just like a foot or two away.
Yeah. Then you go back, and then it would appear again, and it's those kinds of barriers. But this one was definitely around the whole building. Now the barriers that were at the Hollywood Bowl was kind of like a labyrinth. It was more like a labyrinth or something like that. So they could stand in some areas and you wouldn't be able to sense them or see them. But if you moved to an opening, you could see them. With this, he literally had put up a barrier around the whole thing.
That looked like a wall, you said.
Yeah, yeah, it's basically like a very tall wall. This is, you know, and I would say that it was something that like a cube that, or like an aquarium or something with a lid, so that there was no opening at the top as well.
Wow.
I don't know if you noticed that there was a Masonic temple right next to that museum.
I don't think we noticed it, Chief.
Yeah, no.
Only because I have a lot of religious background. I was like, oh, look at that.
Yeah, there was some definite interaction between the museum and the Masonic temple. And the Masons are known for, you know, their occult type. Well, they'll say that people who are conspiracy theorists will say these things, but the reality of the matter is that they, you know, they definitely have some, you know, strong connections to the occult. And it felt like that he probably made some kind of a deal with them, and maybe they even owned the property that he put the museum on. So we found a connection there. But go ahead, though.
I don't know if anybody else wanted to share anything from that room.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess the only thing I would share is it was interesting that Miss Oracle L said that there was somebody behind us in that room, because although I was containing the entire time, that was the only time I felt the need to pull out the energy hammer that you gave me. So I just thought that was interesting, and I just wanted to bring that up.
Okay. Well, I think also, well, Nara, you have anything to add to that?
Is it the room where they asked us we can get a chance to crawl in
Yes.
an act something? It was like, no,
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah.
So the small door off to the left, like it was like a really, really small door, like probably like 3 feet tall. And it's like a little tunnel into the next room. And the people with the passes that we had, they're like, oh, you guys can go. We all looked at Miss Oracle L like, should we go? And she was like, nope. And we're like, okay, we won't go.
Yeah.
Well, you know, as you go on, you're going to tell me, you know, how much more you felt, if you still felt, you know, things showing up around you, or what you did in the other rooms. Then we'll just go from there.
Okay, the next room, it was a bedroom where this man transitioned in there, and it was like they had a basketball player, like videos playing like a basketball player who OD'd there, and like they're saying like the bed was haunted, and they still had everything, kind of like how he had it when they came to get his body. And off to the side there was like a really large mirror, and it felt creepy in there. It was also smells in there, but I remember when we were getting ready to walk out, I turned around and I saw like a greenish, bluish, cloudy orb on the mirror. And I go to Miss Oracle. I was like, oh, I see an orb. And she was like, yep, there's something definitely on that mirror.
Just mentioning the small door, is that something that happened later?
The small door was inside of the exorcist room. It was almost like a small doorway to go into the next room, which was, I believe it just had like a bunch of like stuffed animals and like dolls and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. All right. So you never got into that room?
We went in through the outside through the door. Like we just looked inside. It was like a small little, like it just looked like a bunch of like stacked dolls and stuff inside of there. And that room definitely felt creepy. It was like a really tight space too.
Yeah, it was really dark. You couldn't even see on the other side.
Oh, wow.
And they had it to where I guess the people who bought specific tickets could go through, and then everybody else had to go around.
Mm-hmm.
But that thing we didn't.
But you decided not to.
Yeah, it just looked scary, and we were like, we can't see. And then we asked Miss Orwell, we were like, yeah, we probably shouldn't. So we just did, and we walked around.
And you know, those things are what they call haunted objects. So, you know, dolls and, you know, stuffed toys and so on and so forth as haunted objects. So I've have come across stories where there will be an item and it'll just, well, basically collect souls, so to speak. So there's a story of a woman who gave a cursed doll to this so-called friend of hers who was, who was pregnant with her, with her, her new baby, her first baby. And this woman had some jealousy, and she gave this doll as a gift. But under it, she was trying to curse this woman, and the woman gave birth. 3 days later, she lost the kid. It was a baby boy. She lost a baby boy, and the woman still had the doll, not knowing that it was cursed. But she would start to hear baby's voice coming out of the doll, like crying and so on and so forth. And it's one of these weird ones where the item was passed down because once they realized what it was, they were afraid to get rid of it because they were fearful that worse things can happen, which I don't understand. I mean, the reality of the matter is, it's killing their kids and so on and so forth. So passed it down to, she had a daughter, her daughter had a kid, she passed the doll down to her daughter, and then the daughter had her first child was a boy, and 3 days later, that kid died. And then the daughter heard the voice of her kid in the doll. And as it went on, they were hearing more than just one voice in this doll. As far as like cursed items, those are a room full of cursed items, but also traps for people's for fragments of people's consciousness.
Because churches are like that too. For 20-something years, I was in the church cult, and they would have you go to the altar and you pray, and you do it all the time. And Miss Oracle was like, I see an image of you, like as a little girl, but you're underneath this dark space, and there's like these steps that go up. What is that? And then I was like, oh, that's the altar. And she's like, and I see versions of you in all the churches you ever went to, inside the altar. Mm-hmm. And so that happens in many religious organizations where they trap pieces of people's consciousness.
Yeah, I was definitely tuned in that way because like years ago, she literally saw the fragments of someone that I was involved with at the time, and those fragments were standing in various parts of the same room, like in different positions, just standing, some paying attention to her, some weren't. So fragmentation is very, very real. But okay, who's next with the responding? Whoever wants to respond, go ahead.
I'll go. I remember being in the room, and actually there was a question that I had about that specific room, if that's okay.
Yeah.
There's the basketball player Lamar Odom. He had a incident where they said he overdosed, but then he later in the interview said that the person who died tried to attack him. So I was just wondering if there was anything that had to do with that. Was it really the guy, or was it something else maybe messing with him in that scenario?
Oh, so he felt that it was the spirit of the other guy that was messing with him?
Yeah, that I believe passed away in that same room where he stayed, where he had the overdose that he said, where he was really attacked. Now
he had an overdose and he survived it, or the guy?
Yes, the basketball player Lamar Odom, he survived it. Yes, when he survived, the hospital was saying overdose, but he was saying out of his mouth, I think the guy personally attacked me and tried to kill me. But yeah, that was it.
I get a yes on that, but you wanted to add something to that, Nelly?
No, I was just trying to put the timeline together. Lamar Odom had visited the guy who transitioned when he was alive, like at a party at his house, and he ended up spending the night. And he let him spend the night on that bed, which they were saying the bed was haunted, which is the same the guy transitioned in.
Okay, but the guy transitioned after he had spent the night at his place?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, something did attack him. That's interesting. Okay, so all these folks who are into see they're trying to pull away into the celebrity, even in sports and so on and so forth, and they get to this certain height where they're making all this money and and they have all this stardom and so on. That has to do with soul selling.
Oh.
So this guy, whatever I'm getting, that usually when these folks sell their souls, and even some, I've probably talked about on some forum in the past, where they'll talk about that something else will take over when they perform.
Yeah.
So they, and some don't even remember the performance because something steps in and takes over.
Is it like a possession, Chief?
Yeah, literally a possession. You're actually, in other words, you make a deal with, with density, or they say the deal with the devil, however they want to put it, Satan, whatever. You're literally signing the contract in a sense, but you're not reading this fine print that says we have the right to take you over whenever we want to. And then when we decide to cash in your chips, in other words, collect your soul, we'll do it whenever we feel like it. So, they're anxious because people are anxious to be, known, to be celebrities and so on and so forth. And so they'll just gloss over it. It's like, for instance, I use an example. There are stories about someone who finds this really nice house. They think it's a really nice house, and it should cost more, but it doesn't. They said, but it's a deal. It's a deal, and they don't think in terms of there must be something wrong with that house. That's why it's a deal. And then, of course, they invest all this money into it, and then they move in, and then find out that it's extremely haunted. And then they're stuck because a lot of them, they spend so much money, they can't even afford to get out of the place. Or they try to sell it and they have to be there getting tormented until they can, if they can, sell the place. And a lot of times people will just actually just walk away from the property. So the same thing with the deal, the deal with Satan or density and so on and so forth is like that. They're saying that this guy, his job, he wasn't even in himself. The guy who owned the bed, he wasn't even in himself. Himself, in order to fulfill and try to basically get some benefits or something from the deal, he has to do the bidding of the density. Therefore, he did try to strangle this guy, but in the spirit form. It's like when people have these out-of-body experiences, their body's laying there, but they're not there. Or people are in a coma, their body's laying there, but they're not in the body. So whatever was inviting him to sleep over knew that they were setting him up. And maybe they wanted to kill him, and maybe they failed. But got quiet on that one. But
no, thank you for answering the question.
I believe his house was like a party house. They were showing videos of like how they would have girls come over, like celebrities, to go stay at this guy's house, and then whatever poison they like and stuff like that. So it makes sense that it's like a feeding house type thing.
Yeah, literally, a feeding house, or you call it like a feeding hub. Yeah, a lot of places like that are feeding hubs. Looking at it from this angle, it definitely makes sense that no, he probably was doing drugs, but he probably felt he wasn't doing enough to OD. And maybe these guys are melanated.
Yes.
The basketball players.
Oh yeah, the basketball player, not the other guy.
Okay, the basketball players. The other guy wasn't. Okay, no. So they didn't see any. Well, they might have seen some signs and might have ignored it. Like either sometimes when people have these type of attacks, you will actually see like a handprint around their neck. So they may overlook that. It's something like that, which is that he probably did have signs of an attack, but they decided not to look at that. And just he's a celebrity. He's at a party. They're probably doing coke and whatever else, and so on and so forth. And yeah.
They wanted to end his contract, but he survived.
Yeah. So they're not beyond screwing up. They screw up all the time. But they have movies that have you like, no, if we want you, we can get you. Nah, they screw up quite a bit. Yeah. So I don't know if you followed this guy after that time, if he's had any other issues like that.
He's had a lot of issues, Chief. In and out of drug. He was married to one of the Kardashians, and that ended because of his, I guess, severe drug use or whatever. But I feel like they were feeding off of him as well, because.
Yeah, the Kardashians are definitely a weird thing. It's like, and I've read some stuff about them and how they even came about, which is still, to some, are mysterious. What makes them special, or what makes them celebrities, other than, but I don't know if they sing and dance or anything.
No, the rumor going around in LA is that their mother unit is a big witch and has like a cult type of situation going.
And that's definitely was what I was getting. That definitely, you know, and she would be considered herself more like more. They're talking then. Someone's saying Satanist. So that's where you get the head witch. In other words, that, you know, the Satanists will lift them to the level of a head witch. They can't lift themselves up. You know, they can do all kinds of things, but unless they have the okay of a sorcerer or a Satanist, which is basically, you know, the same thing, or a wizard, which is basically the same thing, they, you know, they're still just basically low-level witches. And part of the deal is to feed. So whatever issues he had when he married her, whoever he married exacerbated the problem. In other words, they made it worse. And I still think whatever it is that's protecting him, if he's still alive, there's something that's hanging in there trying to protect him. So
Yeah, he's still alive.
Yeah. So he has something in there that's, you know, that's trying to protect him. Okay, Ms. A. Yes.
So can I take the deal?
Whoever's protecting says, can he take the deal? So these days, I you know, anyone who sincerely wants to, you know, take the deal, do the work, I give them the deal.
Yeah, it's crazy. We're just searching YouTube, looking at cat videos, me, and then sharing it. And then stick figures everywhere. I'm like, why are so many stick figures in this cat video? And they're like, oh, they want a job. And it's like,
Yeah, really accurate.
There's a lot going on in this image of cats, Chief.
The ones still looking at their shade?
Yes, the cats that are all like...
The black cats.
Yeah, the black cats. One says, I think my cats have started a coven. There's so many stick figures.
Oh, you're looking at your SOS.
Yes, I am.
So stick figures are doing what then?
They're coming out of the screen. They're sideways. They're connecting between all the cats and stuff. Yeah, it's really busy. So busy. They're even in the shades on the ceiling. They're even in the leaves on the wall.
So it's like an infestation.
Oh, wow. Super busy.
So do the cats look like they're looking at any of them?
They're looking at the...
Ones in
There
the
is
shade?
some energy in the glass at the top. In the shades, yeah. It's very interesting. Okay, I think. Oh, there's a lot of activity. So much activity, it's crazy. So much energy passing from between them. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have seen the release of your drive-by yet.
Yes, I was watching it this morning.
Oh, I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. As you can tell, Eric, there's a whole lot of activity out there.
Seriously.
Yeah.
we were able to see, you know, every state in America to me is kind of like their own little world, but within one country. So, you know, in Nevada, it's Las Vegas, it's everywhere you see is these posters that say love, 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 love. Yeah. And we actually saw twice entities that were shooting them with these really long looking arrows. It's like, and what I felt if I'm saying anything that you want to change,
No, go ahead.
but it looked like what they were looking for is people who like exuded loneliness or like a desperation for a partner or any kind of like insecurity. I felt that that's who they were targeting with the.
Mhm. Yeah, because I don't know if I think they call Las Vegas the marriage capital of the world or some kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah. They call it Sin City also.
Yeah, it's a big one. And from all the activity that Eric already saw, it's pretty crowded. It's definitely a feeding hub. So, all right, Nara, you haven't said anything in a while. So with us, Nara.
I'm processing. There's a lot of information.
She's taking notes.
Are you taking notes? Okay, well, we'll move on. Nelly, you want to move to the next?
Yeah, the next room. I feel like we all had different experiences in there. It's the room. I don't know if you guys remember where we walked in. It was like that cast iron like pot where they were saying that they were like boiling flesh, and they had the actual skin on the wall. You guys remember that?
Yes.
So this room, when you walk in, is wooden floors, and you walk in and it seems like a one story, but then when you get to the back of the room, it's kind of opened and it goes up like it looks like an attic. And there's like a fake figure like hanging, but then on the backside, there was like a framed photo of somebody who got skinned, and it was like the original flesh. And they were telling the story about how they used to I guess cook people in the pot, but then this one lady kept it and made it like a garden or something like that. But when I specifically walked into that room, I felt like I walked on a boat, and I felt like motion sickness, and I felt like kind of the feeling of like, I don't know if this is okay to say, like vertigo, like when you feel like dizzy. And then the smell was pungent as well. And Miss Oracle L says she felt something too, but I don't know if anybody else what they felt. But
Yeah, what do you guys feel?
Yeah, for me, that was one of the rooms where I felt a lot more pressure than the other rooms. And also, just the thing that stood out was, I guess that was the guy who was responsible for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies. He's like the real life version of that.
Okay.
And also the smell too. Yeah, the smell is really strong in there.
Well, but definitely got that. They actually had that particular spirit of that person was definitely in that room.
That's the room, Chief, where I mentioned the smell, and the guy heard me, and he was like, "Oh, it's the smoke machine." And I was like, "It's not the smoke machine."
But yeah, definitely. Well, all these guys are, all this stuff is all, I should say, connected to what one would consider satanic stuff. When they're doing all these very horrific types of things and these very, very, very macabre things like that. And well, I mean, the museum itself is basically, surrounded. It has to do with the macabre. But it's just really interesting because it sounds like he kind of added some theatrical touches, almost like to make it like a what do you call those amusement park ghost house or something.
Right.
A dummy of somebody hanging from the rafters and so on and so forth. And almost like trying to, I don't know if there's a part to just mess with people's minds to think that, oh, this is just, like, an amusement park thing, but a little bit more intense. When in reality, they're there for business, and since you guys have containment, I'm quite sure they're a little disappointed that they didn't get what they thought that, they, were going to get from you. But again, even when they're getting things, they actually do get pieces of people, but they still can't, like, digest it. It doesn't add to their essence. So, so there's like this frantic thing. Our drive-by, when we walked by, there were definitely there were some that were like just laying on the ground or something, like they were emaciated.
Yeah, they're like, I'm here, but I'm not doing anything.
Yeah. So it's like, look, the deal is better than starving. Yeah. I said, yeah, you get the deal, but you don't double cross me if I give you the deal.
And most of them want the deal because life is boring if they can't do anything.
Yeah, literally. I think that there was something where it's almost like some kind of weird kind of chain or something, like one that's like he had a chain on his ankle or something. And he was connected. And that's the one I think had to do with a bed. That he was, you know, the spirit was chained, I would say chained to the bed. Yeah. Yeah. But not to go backwards. Ms. Amy,
Well, with the current room, is gross sounding. Sorry. But this is what I heard, Chief. I could check. I'm not sure. That the spirit or the ghost of the man, ghost spirit. I don't know.
Let's say spirit.
Spirit of the man who was the original, the OG Chainsaw Massacre guy. He's looking for people with the weakness of that movie.
Yeah, well, you know, fear is like it's like a doorway. If you're afraid, that means that, you know, your door doesn't have a lock on it. If you're not afraid, you can keep yourself concealed, and that's what containment does. Even if you have some fear going on, you can still, you know, keep them out by using my tools. Or like Eric, you said, when you felt like, okay, I'm going to pull out, you know, something a little heavier, like hammer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so, you know, you guys been in, you know, well armed, and, you know, the only reason I suggested you going because I knew, you know, you had enough protection.
The entity said that actually Chief's tools, when you have them, give off a certain signature, and that signature is foreign to density. So they know, okay, whatever or whoever is with them is different. So might want to wait and see what happens to others.
Yeah, it's different, and they just walk into it anyway. So I'm quite sure you ran it, you know, probably, you're going to probably tell me that you felt some stuff in the other rooms anyway. And these are the ones who are just unaware, you know, or they can't decipher what's going on. Or they're so desperately hungry that they just keep trying. Yeah. If you had a hologram of a cake on a plate, it looks like a real cake, and you keep trying to eat it, and, you know, and you get nothing. It's similar to that. What you're going to say, Eric?
All I was gonna say is, despite the eerie feelings, like I'm sure some of it was me, maybe some things were empathing, I felt that I was safe using your tools. I felt like despite the fear, that nothing could affect me because I was protected by it.
Yeah, that's true. That's totally
I
true.
agree with that.
Yeah, I felt like confidence during the tour because at the reception, Miss Oracle Al was saying, I can feel the chief presence. And I'm like, oh, chief is supervising us.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I did have my focus on you guys while you were there, so yeah. But again, just the tools alone, if I give you the tools, they're going to work. Yeah.
Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
That's what I feel about whenever I use Chief's tools. I feel like this has backing. Like, you know, whenever you have unlimited bullets, that's how I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, with the tools, you'll never run out of protection. That particular one with the skin, it almost reminds me a little bit of maybe, I don't know, Silence of the Lamb, have anything to do with that, because that had also to do with a guy, a serial killer, and using the skins of these women that he was murdering. But also that goes, I'm quite sure it goes way past the Nazis and well, I guess with Mengele or whatever, where they were doing experiments on the captives, like the Jews and Gypsies and whoever else they didn't like, and they were dissecting them, and they literally were making like wallets and lampshades and things like that out of human skin.
I believe this guy, Chief, was actually wearing the skin.
Okay.
If I'm mistaken. I think they said that.
You make shoes of
Yeah, some talk about making shoes out of them. And actually, the wearing the skin reminds you of Silence of the Lambs. You know, that's one of the things that this one guy who was killing these women, you know, was doing. He you know, killing. They, you know, shear their skin, and then he would sew it together, and then he'd be in the mirror looking at himself with, you know, it was pretty gross. But anyway.
Chief, a while ago, there was this kid actor. He did the movie Home Alone, and there was this documentary I saw years ago where like some guy higher up in the industry came into his room, and a friend of his had passed away, and the guy had put like a crack pipe on his lap, and he was like, "Come get this," and he was like, "No," and then he crossed his legs, and he was like, "You like my shoes? Do they look familiar?" and apparently he was implying that that was the girl's skin on the shoes, like his shoes were girl's skin.
Yeah, that was Coley McCulkin. Yeah.
Yeah, Macaulay Culkin.
Yeah, I recall something about that story, and that well, again, when you deal with with that realm of that industry, celebrity and so on and so forth, they'll only be involved with things where they feel that they can get the most essence. So in other words, anything where people are going to focus. So if they, if you have a talent and you find a certain number of people are focusing on you, and I might have said this or something like that, like this on the forum as well, then they're going to be interested, because that means that you can draw in more food and more essence for them. Home Alone or whatever. Yeah, I do recall that story, and I recall some other stories about being individuals who were in the industry, who were pretty, well known, their careers were going okay, and they would have to. It was like mandatory that they show up at these particular types of gatherings, which were basically satanic gatherings. And some will talk about actual human sacrifices. Some will talk about mock sacrifices, which means probably an animal or something being sacrificed. So yeah, this guy's definitely, as I said, the whole museum, it was just smelled of the satanic when we were out there and doing the drive-by. Yeah.
The next room, Chief, that we went to was only for the people who paid the extra thing. Was like the basement where they had like human sacrifices and stuff like that. And when we went down, it was dark and it was like a small, tight space. But they had a chair, and on the chair they had a statue of Baphomet, and they had the spirit box playing, and it was like a lot of like growling and roaring. And then Ms. Oracle L said that it was coming from the actual statue, but it felt really, really eerie down there.
Part of the VIP tour that Nelly set up for us allowed us to go to certain exhibits that other people were not able to go to. One place that we were allowed to go to was in the basement. We went down some dark stairs into a small, dark room where a Zak Bagans video was supposed to play, but instead it was just static. It would start and stop. In one corner of the room is what I called the seated Satan goat statue, or Baphomet. I didn't really feel anything coming from the statue except when the static from the video would stop and go. We never found out what that room really was because the video didn't play. So whenever the static happened, there would be little sparks or spark energy coming out of the statue. Whenever the static stopped, the sparks would go back into the statue. Standing too close to that statue was probably not the best thing to do because upon leaving that room, it felt like something was walking behind me. Everybody else was in front of me, so there shouldn't be anyone behind me. I was actually glad to get back upstairs. Also, interestingly enough, whatever it was that was behind me stayed in the basement. It didn't come upstairs.
And I would say that's probably something that he trapped down there as well. Yeah. Now, as I've said before, that there are those who would pretend to or would play the role of Baphomet, just like there are those who play the role of any type of religious figure. There's not one, religious figure. There are those who basically, it's like they play a role or something like that. And I think there's this TV show that was on. I don't know if it's still on. It's like Gods of America, something like that. I don't know if any of you know any about that one. And there was an episode where it was interesting, but and weird. But there was one where this one woman who's supposed to be some kind of god or whatever as well, and she's putting on this party, and it's like on this estate and so on and so forth, and all these individuals who are supposed to be part of the god thing or whatever were showing up. And at one point the one guy comes in and he's talking to her or whatever, and he says, yeah, I noticed that you got about 10 Jesuses out there. So literally, it's though that show how density likes to mess with people, we're literally telling you what they do. That, nah, that's not really a Jesus. It's all these guys who play this role of Jesus.
It's like in Las Vegas. There wasn't one Cupid. It was a squad of entities who do the Cupid role. Like, okay, yeah, you.
Yeah, because you got a couple,
yes.
two different ones. One was like really tall. Were they both tall? One was
well, they were all tall because they always show them as little babies with little wings. They're not babies with little wings.
Yeah, and I think the emoji or something uses like cherub, shooting an arrow in the heart, or a demon. Yeah.
They said that we would actually be considered demon types. That's what they said.
Yeah, literally. Yeah.
Because we actually, marriage, random marriage is about essence gathering. Because, like, you don't know this person, you just met them last night, and now you're married, and you're like, oh, what did I do? That stuff. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, so, in other words, that's another way of getting essence. Also, part of procreation, if someone, feels that they should be, in a union before having kids or something like that. And I think the majority of individuals after they get married find out that they feel like they got bamboozled. In other words, they feel that they got tricked into something with all this flowery talk about marriage and romance and so on and so forth. And the harm they go down, that majority of individuals are very, very unhappy once they realize what it is. That it's not really this union or whatever that, that's going to be, glorious. Or individuals who even talk about, well, they have a wonderful marriage. Yeah. Come here, now muscle test you, and you'll find, their marriage is shit. They're miserable. Some feel that they're married to a demon. But again, at the sake of not going off into something too far away from the interview,
I have
go ahead.
I have one along the line. So when she was saying that the entities were trapped there, the one that was chained to the bed, the one that was, all these ones that are locked in there. What was really interesting in the Zak Bagans Museum drive-by that we're going to do, the entities would come to the gate, like we were right in front of the gate, and they would be on the gate, but never outside the gate for a long time until Chief brought the barrier down. And I was like, why don't they come, why can't they come outside and on the sidewalk, and hang out, and, but they just was there. But it wasn't until afterwards that when Chief brought the barrier down and we're like, okay, we can go now. We went to the car. They're all hanging out in the palm tree next to the car. And I was like, oh, they can't get out now. This is cool.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, at first we weren't really exactly sure, what their presence meant. But when we do SLS and we're doing SLS, they'll come from, they can be 360 around you. This was very odd. There's still some that are still there that are chained up.
And there was like EVP of some of those entities were imprisoned in there, and they're like, don't leave us, don't go. And then there was other entities that are like, I have to go, we're starving, And so there was like kind of this tug of war like drama on the EVP, and I was like, ooh.
Let's go to your whole list, even if we go over an hour.
Okay, I have a few more. There was one room that we went into, and they had different actors who transitioned. They had like a chair for Michael Jackson's room when he transitioned, and then we went into this, and then they had what's his name, Mrs. Doubtfire.
Robin Williams.
Yes, they had stuff from him, and like they have like original like costumes and things they might have worn. And then we went into this one room, and I forgot the actor's name, but he was married to a lady who was like into black magic, and I guess their relationship went south. So she like cursed his car. So like he transitioned. Somebody told him not to drive the car, like a friend of his or something like that was like, don't drive the car, and he did, and he transitioned. They got the car, and they tried to transport the car somewhere else, and an accident happened. So every time the car was moved, something happened to where like all that was left from the wreck was like, I want to say like one of the wheel axles. And they were saying that even people who have that item, stuff happens to them. And in the room, we were facing forward, and there was like a black wall behind us. I was feeling energy behind me, but I didn't know the wall eventually would come up. But once the wall came up, it showed the actual axle, the part of the car, and it was affecting Miss Oracle L a lot. Like she started instantly purging. Even when we walked outside, it took her a minute to gather herself after that. It was really strong energy once the blinds came up to show the car part.
Now, would that be James Dean?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't know that he had. Well, I know some of his story about the car was called Little Bastard, and he was I guess was I think he was getting into car racing or something like that, and that he was opening it up out on the I don't know if it was in Nevada, anyways, out there in the desert area on the road, and he ended up like colliding with another car, and and then he ended up getting killed, and I think they call it like the 27 Club or something like that. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
There are these individuals who were celebrities who died at 27.
Ah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that he's one of them. Rix is another one. There's Janis Joplin. There's someone who's more of a more current that I didn't follow. But there's a good number. Also, there's a guy that a lot of these white rock groups pretty much say that their influence came from this guy, and they did the song Crossroads or whatever, the blues. He's a blues musician from like the 30s or something like that, and he was 27 when he died as well. And and there's I guess there's these theories having to do with being cursed, and I don't know if I don't believe in the numerology thing, but for some reason the age 27 or something with the number of these individuals who are well known or up and coming were literally end up literally dying right as they were on their way up.
Now, I remember when we went to the Forever Cemetery, there was a young actor who transitioned. I feel like you were kind of saying something similar to that. Do you remember Eric? It was kind of by the guitar guy. It was a young guy.
Oh yeah,
that was like on a bunch of movies. It was like a long.
His headstone was actually like his body figure, like a statue of him, and he was a young kid.
What's his name?
He played on Star Trek.
Oh, someone played on Star Trek.
I think so.
Oh.
Let's see.
Well, I was going.
Yeah, he played he played Scotty, maybe.
Again, when you're in that industry, you're literally, especially at that time, you're rubbing elbows with the satanic. So the movie industry, the music industry, big time rubbing elbows with the satanic. Also the sports industry as well. But anything where they get a mass of people focusing, that's what they're interested in. So anyone who wants to be part of that, good luck to you. But you can go around it and reach whatever success, as long as you're not into this whole ego feeding thing, which may be just something having to do with attachments and things like that that a person's carrying around in them, that wants to segue you into something like that, which never turns out very